Hey, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Zoom. I just want to get a quick sound check real fast.
Yeah, sound loud and clear, Bruce.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Hey, so thanks for joining us here on Zoom and also those that are joining on YouTube. Just an admin note before we begin. So I live in Louisiana and we were recently hit with that hurricane. So my internet is very bad. So I'm only going to be doing the first part of this. After that, I'll be passing off the mic, and he will continue on to show the platform and everything that goes along with it. With that being said, I want to basically start by explaining who we are and what FlowTrade is. So we're a team of traders that came together a few years ago and decided that we wanted to do everything we could to beat the market makers, to beat the institutional traders and all that stuff. So what we ended up doing was working on a algorithm that would give us that inside information and be able to give us a heads up on what was going on. So we realized that there was no way for us to beat those people, to beat the market makers, to beat the institutions, to beat the dark pool traders. So what we decided was that we would trade with them and do the exact same thing that they were doing. Um, of course, they do have a way of kind of hiding that information from us, and but like I said, we worked on a way and we devised something in order to come up with a way to see exactly what that is. Um, so let's go ahead and get into it. So next slide, please. And we'll go ahead and just go straight to the next slide. Okay, so the key thing that we use is the flow index. And so a lot of questions always come up is, what is the flow index? And so the flow index is a proprietary algorithm that we came up with that tracks what that big money computers, institutions, and the dark pools are doing in real time in order to give the end user the ability to trade alongside of that smart money and not against it. How does it make us better? It makes us better because of the fact that we're able to see those moves telegraphed long before the move actually starts to happen. So we can start looking for those areas of support or resistance in order to take those ranges and get those trades going on. So the flow index is the tool that was built to track the movement of those algorithms, the institutions, and dark pool action that occurs. The data that we're getting is coming straight from the exchange, and that's just so we get the most accurate information. The data is then compiled into our algorithm, and we're able to calculate the flow index based off of that. The flow index shows exactly what they're doing. Again, like I said, telegraphing the move so we can see it prior to. One of the main things that we always get questions about is the flow index the same? Is it on the same scale as price? The answer is no. So when we see the flow index move through price, it doesn't necessarily indicate the divergence started there. Um, it does kind of give you a little bit of a way to say that, okay, this is a safe range to take here. But we're looking at all aspects, and not always will you see the price move, or rather the flow index move through price and it still be a divergence setup. So next slide, please. Okay, so how do we use the flow index? So we use the flow index as a tool for confirmation of direction. The first thing that we do is check our charts and to see if we have a setup that favors the direction that we're looking to trade. If those both check out, or I'm sorry, if that checks out, the next thing we do is to see what the flow index is showing. If there's a divergent range, confirmation, or continuation showing, then the trade's all set. if not, you want to take that entry. And if it's not doing that, then you know that the flow index is against you, which means you're trading against the big money and all that information. So with that, this is one of the flow charts that we use. We're always trying to talk ourselves out of a trade as opposed to getting into a trade, because it's really easy just to dive right in. So we use this flow chart to kind of use a way to talk ourselves out of it. So if one thing is not right on it, then we're not in the trade. But the great thing is we're only looking at two specific things. So before the trade, we want to determine the trend. If we're in a sideways trend, then there's no trade at all. And then bullish or bearish, well, then we start moving out into the flow. So if we're in the bullish side, if we're at support, then we can move on to see what the algos are doing. But if we're not at any support, we're not taking the trade, because we don't want to be caught in no man's land where this could go either direction. And support can come in various ways. If you're using the Fibonacci, if you're using Bollinger Bands, whatever the case is, floor trader pivots, whatever you use, this can be incorporated into that as your tool. Okay, so we do have support. Let's just pretend that we're looking at something that has support. So now we look down. Does the flow or does the algo agree with us? If it doesn't, then there's no trade. If it does, then we're taking the trade. And of course, we're using that area of support as essentially our stop as well. So we can use that area to take the trade, and we'll give it a little bit of a buffer room. At least that's the way I do it. I give it a little bit of room in case it starts to fall through it, and then obviously starts to move in the direction I'm looking for. So the same rule applies for the bearish side. If we're at a resistance, if we're not, then there's no trade right off the bat. And if the algo doesn't agree with it, then there's no trade. So we just work our way through this to talk ourselves out of the trade, as opposed to just saying, oh, I'm going to go ahead and take this trade anyway, and we'll see what happens. So next slide, please. Okay. So how do we use it? So there's three types that we look at, and essentially there is a fourth, but it's kind of the same thing as divergence. It's just on a larger scale, and we'll talk about that as well, and also show an example of it. So there's the divergence, there's continuation, and confirmation. All of these types happen all the time throughout the day. So, and then again, there's that fourth type, which is we call trend divergence, and we'll look at an example of that later on. So go ahead and slide, please. So now, like I was saying, how the scale of the algo and price are different. Even though we're not getting price to move through, or the algo to move through price rather, the divergence is still being set up. As we see price moving up off of number one, you see all the red arrows, I'm sorry, the red lines off the yellow arrows. It's basically showing us where price starts moving up, but the algo is still going down, which is the white line that's on the chart. So that's what's really going on behind the scenes. We're seeing a lot of selling off on this particular chart. This is BA from $20 ago or so, $15 ago. So we see those areas start to move up, but the index, the flow index, is still showing that heavy selling. So long as we're seeing that heavy selling, now all we're doing is looking for the resistance areas and looking to find the short side of the trade. So for another example, this week we had a nice sell-off, and some would call it a correction. Is it was all telegraphed in there, and when Trax shows you the platform, you'll be able to see that every one of the equities that came down all showed that well in advance. So that's when we start looking for those heavy areas of resistance and of course, as options traders, at least, that's what I trade. Those downside moves really pay a lot better than those upside moves, because they're faster, and I really enjoy them. So we'll just go to the next slide, please. Okay, so this is a divergence setup on INTU. So these are all to the upside. On that first area to note right there, the flow index continued to rise, and the price dropped down approximately $3. So where that range, that first high right there is created, we had the divergence set up there. So then what we can do is expect for the price to move back up. So that's exactly where we look for our target. And it just so happened that this one created two of them in that same trading day. And not to say that you couldn't trade against it and take those down each time. But the thing is we're looking for those higher probability plays, and this one just so happens to trade out every single time. When you get those divergent ranges like that, they will trade out every time. Next slide, please. So here's another example on BA. Again, this is to the downside, and the keynote the key takeaway from this is that this doesn't have any bias towards the upside or downside. As technical traders, we don't care which direction it goes. We just want to be right, and the way that we're right most often is using the flow index, along with the support and resistance zones that we're looking for. But the key is here is that we have no bias on which direction things go. We're trading it to make money. We're not trading it to be to pump our chest and post to Twitter on the wins that we have, or whatever the case is. So just like Intuit, this is the exact same thing. Price moved up, even though the flow index was showing that heavy selling, and we were able to capitalize on those as the price trades back out to that range. And then again, the next day, it did the exact same thing. When I fibbed this out, each time it either hit a 50% retracement or the 618 and turned back down. So if you're a Fibonacci trader, then bam, there's your support resistance zones to use to take your trade against. Next slide, please. So this is that one that we were talking about, the trend divergence. And this is an extended form of divergence. And this is where we're looking for those long-term moves, especially for the swing traders. And what's happening here is that those institutions, market makers, all those people that we're trading against are quietly building their position in it. As this one dropped on XLE, they started buying their positions in it and started, as position traders, that's what they're looking to do. So as soon as we came down to a major support level, that's when people can start taking it. Now, I'm one of those traders that I throw a little bit of risk on there to try and catch the turn, whereas people like Mike are people that are looking for the confirmation that the move is going to continue up in that direction. And I'm sure Mike would expound on that a little bit more as he gets into it. But for this one, when we get to that major support area, that's where I'm throwing my trade on, and I'm just using that same area as my stop, like I talked about a minute ago, giving it just a little bit of a buffer to, obviously I'm not going to be green right off the bat in every instance. So just giving it that little bit of buffer always helps. And so these are the ones that can play out over a couple days. And really pay well. Mike has a really good scanner that he uses, and a good system that the community in FlowTrade uses to identify these the most, and then he takes it even a step further and narrows it down to those highest probability plays that come up. I think, if I remember, you were 4 for 4 last week, Mike?
Yeah, 4 for 4 last week.
Perfect.
It was only 8 out of 9 the week before, though.
Oh, it's 8 out of 9. All right. Well, I'll take those chances. So that's for the swing trader type people going on. We're always getting questions, is this good for swing trading? Absolutely, especially with, like I said, the tools that Mike has come up with that allows us to scan and see those as a probability plays. Next slide, please. Okay, so this one is on SPY. Obviously, about $20 ago, SPY has just gone bananas lately. But on this particular day, a lot of people were long on it, and everyone, thought this was going straight to 370 with nothing in its way. Well, the market makers, institutions, the high frequency stuff, they had different plans in mind, and obviously, in order for us to go higher, we have to pull back and then move back up, as we like to say, pull back and thrust. So in this particular instance, the equity hits resistance. There was a major pivot right there. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but so we were able to get into that and take that down. Now, this is a continuation play. So not only did the divergence play out at that red line, but it came back up and tested that area and then continued moving down as the flow index shows us. So it's a really great way to look at making bigger plays than just trading the divergence. I love when these continuation plays come through. I took one yesterday on Roku, and it was, I loved it. It's so good. I enjoy it so much. So I will show you a video of this one here in a minute, just so you can see it, how it played out in real time. But the main takeaway here is that this was a 1272 extension, the that SPY hit, and it went from that 1272 extension all the way down to a negative 272 extension. So if you're a fib trader and you use the negatives, then you know that how powerful those are. So this one went all the way from the 1272 down to the negative 272. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a confirmation trade. This was on Nvidia, which we've all seen trade all the way up to 580 something and then come down another $100. So it is just going just bananas right now. So this one came down and hit one of the support areas that I watch. As soon as it did, the flow index turned up and it created a higher high, as you see there on point number 2. And then the flow index just continued to rise. So that gave us the inclination that this is going to move back up and possibly go even higher. And that's exactly what happened. So each time that those pull back, those are divergence setups. So those red lines that are there on number 4, those are each time the pullback occurs, that is another divergence setup. Now they may not be very big, and you may have to look at a smaller time frame as far as how you're fibbing or how you're looking at your Bollinger Bands, your demand zones, whatever the case is, for those support areas to come through. And then again, you're just using that area as your stop to cut for pennies as opposed to cutting for big time losses. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is really what I wanted to talk about, and it's why I'm hot spotting right now in order to be a part of this, because this is what I love the most, the block trades and dark pools. I every single day, this is what I'm using for my trading outside of my strategy itself. So we track large trades that create the market structure. Not only do we have a scanner to find the tickers, but we're using them as our support and resistance areas for trading. And we also plot them straight onto the chart, so you don't have to look away, which I'll show you here in a minute. And you're always aware of those areas. We also use the flow index in conjunction with those block and dark pool trades, because those are huge trading advantages. Next slide, please. So this is Apple. This, I believe, the day after it had the ER, and it just went completely out of this world. Of course, they had announced that split and everything to go along with that. I think there was some buybacks in there and whatnot. So the key point here is we get a dark pool print. Anything that comes through in blue is a dark pool print. So we get a dark pool print that comes through at 412.68. This is pre-split price, and we had never traded there before. So a lot of the questions that we get is, are your dark pool trades real time? They're as real time as they possibly can be. The exchange has 24 hours to report those to brokers, but we're getting that information from the exchange. So as soon as the exchange sees it, well, then we're able to see it as well. So there are ones that come through 24 hours later, and that's just the nature of the beast when it comes to these dark pool trades, and also what makes them so effective to trade with. So when I'm talking about using the flow index in conjunction with those block trades, when we get a trade like that to print, we can start using that as our support. So just like you would your 50% retracement or your 618 retracement, we're using that the same way. We're taking the trade against that area, and we're using that as our stop. But if we have the flow index giving us that upside inclination, like we see in this image here, then the confidence is there to stay in the trade, and we can plot another Fibonacci retracement with our extensions to see where we're going to go to and what possible target we could take this off at. So this is huge. Usually in the first 30 minutes is where we're getting the most of these to come through. That's why you see a lot of that movement first thing in the morning. And when we do, we use it the same way. So just pretend that this happened at 9:31. And we see the flow index pointing to the upside. Well, that gives us a pretty good indication that this is moving up still. So we can jump into that using that level as our support or resistance, and take it up from there. Like I said, I use this every single day when I'm trading. Of course, I haven't been trading a lot lately because of the hurricane, but when I'm on and I'm trading, this is what I'm using. These trades are explosive at times. Next slide, please. So we have done a little bit of updating to the site itself, and Mike will show you that here shortly. But this is going to remain the same when you look at it. So this is how we use our scanner, and this is so you can go ticker by ticker, and you can plot these onto your own chart, or you can just look at the platform itself. Like we saw in that last image, it showed all the lines across. Those are where those block trade levels came through at, and it's really easy to read. It's just where your symbol is. If it was a dark pool print, it's going to show up in blue. If it's a regular block trade, then it's going to be in white, which is going to be changing soon because we want to try and clean up as much as we possibly can to make it easier on the end user. But for now, just looking at this image, that's how we'll determine it. So the price that the trade was made and how much money was involved in that trade, and then to follow up the date and the timestamp. So this allows you to plot them, like I said, to your chart, or you can just use it off of the software itself and see it there. And this is a web-based software, so it's constantly getting its feed. We don't have much downtime. It's a really great system to use. Next slide, please. So again, this is the the videos I was talking about that we're going to see. This particular one is on Amazon. What you're going to see here is the flow index showing downside immediately as we get a little bit of a pop right at the beginning, creating that nice divergence. And we'll go ahead and run that one, please. So we get that downside move, and then we get the upside move on the equity itself. Then that pivot comes in there, and that's where you take your trade against. And we're looking for that area to trade out of the divergence, because that's where we're looking the divergence to have started at. So we still get the downside move. We never get a higher high on the flow index, and we reach that target. Now, sometimes these do move down further, like I said, with the continuation plays. But to be safe, I'm always looking for the divergent range to trade out. And then I'll take off some of my position. Otherwise, I'm trading it right out to that divergent range. So this one is Roku, and this is also another example of how we're using the flow index, and I'll talk it through as we go. So we start getting that rise again, and we start seeing the algo start to move to the downside, and there's a small range there, and that one trades out, and we get the continuation there. And then each time this pops back up, we get more divergence, and we get some more divergence, because the flow index never lets up and creates a higher high. So we're always looking for those ranges to trade out as long as the flow index is giving us that downside move or upside move, depending on the trade. Next slide, please. So this is SPY. This is that one I was talking about. We saw the image of with the continuation. And you're going to see how it comes back up and retests and moves back down, but the flow index still remains in that downside move. Mike, if you will. So we start getting that range to start trading, and we're looking for that area, the low of the day, to trade out. So a lot of people would have thought that move down there was it, but it's not. We start looking for weakness at those resistance areas. So we get a test there, and we get another test there, and then there's a third test, and that's when it decides it just can't do it anymore and starts to come down to trade back to that divergent range. So once it gets through that divergent range, it's a quick little test of that same spot, and it continues to move down all the way again from the 1272 to a negative 272, which is a pretty nice move throughout the day. Next slide, please. So this is our contact. Now, I do appreciate letting me come on in limited fashion here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us at any time and ask those questions via our social media, email, or our phone number. With that, I'm going to go ahead and hand this off to Mike so he can go through the platform itself. And again, thanks for joining today.
Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate you taking the time. And I know a few people kind of joined in late. Bruce is actually in Louisiana, and that hurricane basically went right over his town, and he's on week 1 of 3 weeks without power that they're telling him. So appreciate you joining us, Bruce. Okay, so I wanted to switch over. I want to show the actual platform. Obviously, it is web-based, as you can see here. So we'll talk a little bit about that first, and then we can get into some of the details and show you a few more examples of the stuff that we've been talking about here today. So first of all, when you get into it, you start off with the charts. We have a 2x2 sample here where you can get 4 charts on one window. You can also switch these to single. And the other thing you can do is you can actually pop some of these out. The platform actually allows you to have 10 windows open simultaneously. So if you're the type of person that has multiple monitors and you want to be watching a lot of stocks at the same time, you've got that ability. So like I can take SPY here and I can just pop this out, and I would have a single window to do that. Oops. Let me just load this back up. There we go. And we'll just put SPY back in there. So like a normal charting platform, we've got a couple of basic tools. You can go in, adjust colors and line sizes and that sort of thing. Little things you can do to customize it just visually to make things work a little better for you. You'll notice that we use 3 major time frames. The 1 and 2 minute are generally what people use when they're trading intraday. And the 15-minute is what people would use if they're doing swing trades, the longer term stuff. So let me just switch this to single pane so it's a little easier for you guys to see. And so as an example, right now I've got SPY up, and here's another example of everything. I'll give you a few examples of everything that Bruce was just talking about since we're currently looking at the charts. So here was SPY, first thing in the morning. This is yesterday morning we're talking about, and you could see that we had a huge dip in the algos at the same time that price initially started going up on Friday morning. Now, after the initial dip that everybody had from Thursday, there was a lot of speculation that this was going to be a quick recovery, things would start heading back up. And a lot of people saw this as an opportunity to jump in, which, as you can see, and in hindsight, we know that would have been a huge mistake. But with the algos, we kind of knew that things were coming back down. So if you took the opportunity to take this trade, it dropped and you continued dropping up until it looks like about 10:45 was where the bottom hit. But here's what I want to note. Through that, as we're moving down, we keep making these lower lows. Now we get into this area here where we have one pop up, but when we came down, we're no longer making lower lows. We kind of evened out here, came back up a little bit. And even when we went down for this big dip, we did not make one at all. And just let me annotate this with a quick line. We started to get into this area where we're making higher lows on the algos, even though we've made this lower low down here. So when we got to this point, this was the tip off for us that market makers and institutional investors are no longer interested in selling. And in fact, they're starting to accumulate positions again, kind of getting back into things, at least for now, for this part of the day. And of course, throughout the rest of the day, things continued up. So really, if you had taken a trade from this area, you pretty much could have held it all day and made big gains on that. And we kind of saw this across the board with multiple tickers that we were watching. Now, let me switch over to that 15-minute chart for a second, because I also want to show you this on the other side. Because like Bruce was mentioning, we go through, it's an exercise that we do as a group where we get together every Saturday. And in fact, we did one of these this morning. We get together every Saturday and I will run some scans, just some basic scans that I built in TOS. This is, nothing magical from the scan side. Looking for areas where different tickers are hitting prices or periods of support and resistance. And I will pull up a huge scan. Now, remember, because we get direct data feeds from NASDAQ, New York Stock Exchange, and ARCA, we've got over 15,000 tickers that we're accumulating data for. When we run the scans, it may break it down and say, okay, we found today, as an example, we found 660 tickers that were either approaching major areas of support or major areas of resistance. Then what we do is, as a group, we'll break it into pieces. Everybody takes a section, and we will now go through our charts, the Flow Algo Index, and we will now look and say, okay, if something is approaching an area of support, are we seeing that trend divergence that I was talking about previously coming back up? And so everybody will do this, and very quickly as a group, we get through a list of 600 tickers in no time at all. Then we can filter it out, and what we get in the end is a short list of generally we get like 30 to 50 on the bullish side, 30 to 50 on the bearish side, showing us higher probability trades that are going to move in those directions. Now, I said 30 to 50 on average, and then people can individually go through those and take a look. Now, last week, when we went through this exercise, we ended up with about maybe 20 tickers giving potentially bullish signals, and there were over 90 of them that were giving bearish signals. We had SPY was on there. We had the Qs on there. We had Google was on there. Let me pull up, here's Amazon. Here is Microsoft. I'll throw Apple up. Let me just make sure, yeah, these are all in the 15s. Here was SPY showing that as price was coming up, and for quite some time as price was coming up, the market makers and the institutional investors had quietly been selling off their positions, almost like they were preparing for this to happen. And so that's basically what happened at the end of last week. Was they were spending all this time, and this is days, this is going back to August 19th, that they were preparing. And then we got this sell-off. And over here, you can see it on Amazon, very particularly around the 25th, 26th, there was a big drop. And even though price was coming up, you could see that they were selling into that buying, getting out of their positions in anticipation of this big drop. Apple, a little more subtle on Apple, but we get the same movement. And over here on Microsoft, I mean, they spent from about the 25th to 26th, where they started selling in anticipation of catching this drop, being out of their position, so they could start buying once we get to the bottom, or more likely before they get to the bottom. Even Tesla came up on the list, and Tesla is such a cult stock that I would generally never look at shorting Tesla. And I made a joke about it on the Monday, and I said, Tesla came up on our list this weekend, but I wouldn't dream of shorting it. And Monday, it hit, it was Monday or Tuesday that after hours, it hit an all-time high of like 528, 530, something ridiculous up there. Since then, Tesla dropped $160 of this week's value. That translates to like $800 of pre-split value, at 30% of their stock value. It was just crazy. And everyone had been talking about, the Fed's holding this up and stocks only go up and all this stuff. And some people were anticipating that, understood that a lot of things were overvalued and it needed to come back some. But despite having all that knowledge of what was going on with the fundamentals, the price just kept going up and up and up. And then suddenly, days beforehand, we start seeing the signals that, hey, they are starting to sell off their positions. So where normally you've got indicators in your charts, and if you're using TOS or TradingView, TradeStation, Thinkorswim, you've got these lagging indicators that once you start seeing the movement, you get confirmation that, yeah, this movement looks good, and that's the way people generally play. The game changer in this is that we're starting to get telegraphs from the market makers that the move is coming before it starts to happen. And that makes all the difference in our trades, because like I said, as we approach areas of support or resistance, we can see the moves happening before they start affecting the price. And it significantly increases the probability in our trades, the ones that we're taking. Okay, so that's the stuff around the charts. Let me go over here. We've also got the block trade section that Bruce was talking about, where essentially you can go through here and you can start throwing up individual tickers if you want to look at those. So you can pull them up and you get all the block trade information. And again, the blue ones are dark pool trades versus the white ones that are standard blocks. And then of course you can adjust those by sizes. So if you're only interested in really, really big block trades or smaller ones, you've got a little bit of granularity in how you look at that. And if I do go back to the charts just for a second, I can go in here and instead of even looking them up, if I have all my tickers up, I can just tell it to throw those directly onto my charts like this. Now, something like SPY, some of these bigger, higher liquidity stocks that the really top end ones, they're going to have a lot more block trades. So you'll see a lot more lines. I don't know if I'm randomly picking Crocs as a stock to look up. A lot less block trade activity happening on those guys. But that's pretty standard. So yeah, you've got this ability to go in and you can look at those individually if you want to look them up. And as Bruce had mentioned, you can take those and start plotting them onto your own charts if you use a different charting platform alongside this stuff. One of our other guys, Fred, will talk about how he actually pops out these charts and he will make them just small and stick them in the corner of his regular charts while he's watching them. We have a video section that goes through how we use the Flow Algo Index itself, a bit about how we do that. And then we have several other videos to help show how they're paired up, because there are a lot of other things, and these are just general videos on them about other tools that people use in trading and how to combine them. Anything from moving averages to when people play Keltner channels, support and resistance, supply demand zones, all kinds of stuff in there. This all comes with the membership just to help you pair your stuff together. We do offer some coaching for people that are new to this stuff. It's not the core of what we do. We're not trying to sell courses or anything like that, but sometimes people do want some assistance in learning how to combine what they're learning with the Flow Algo Index with their current strategy, because the idea is not to replace your strategy, but to enhance your current strategy. Membership also comes with Fly on the Wall News. We've partnered with them to provide this at no extra charge. So that's available. And I generally, when I start my day, I like to go through the news, look at what's going on. I have my favorite tickers that I play often, so I want to go through and scan for those to see anything new that has come up. If there have been major earnings for different companies, I can come here and find out what the results of all that stuff was. I can also do a quick look at what stocks are getting, or what recent upgrades and downgrades have happened, because I may want to get in there and look at some of those. Any major news that comes out, we'll find it here. We heard on Friday afternoon, with everything else that was going on, and people were so occupied with the dumps and what was going on with the market, and the Pentagon actually came out and said that they had re-reviewed the Microsoft bid for the JEDI program, and they had confirmed that they are granting the contract to Microsoft, which is a $10 billion contract. That was huge news for Microsoft, but it was a small piece of news in a complete ocean of activity that was going on in the media yesterday, and a lot of people missed it. Personally, that's something that I caught, and I jumped into it for a very quick scalp and made some really great. It was like the cherry on top of a fantastic day because of how well we got to trade yesterday. Based on what we're doing with the Flow Algo Index. So that other stuff we've got in there is all included with the platform. So any questions? What do you guys want to know about what we're doing in here? And we'll give a couple of minutes for that if you guys want to type them out in the chat. While you're kind of looking at that, I will say Amazon in particular, I know at least one person that absolutely killed playing Amazon yesterday. I don't want to name any names, but when we hear about there are a ton of fake gurus out there who just want to feed people plays, and we've never been about that. We're about getting people to learn how to do this stuff on their own, trading on their own. So we usually shy away from talking about these really, really big, monster trades. But I know at least one individual that made 2,200% taking a trade on Amazon yesterday, which was just a ridiculous amount of profit. So Dario says, how do you know when to get in a trade and when to get out of the trade? Well, like I said, the Flow Index itself is not going to tell you specifically when to get in and out. You still need your own strategy behind it. This is used to enhance it. So, as an example, if you're using RSI, you'd still get your normal indication of the RSI, but you're going to do that along with checking to make sure that the Flow Algo Index agrees with that. So let me switch back to SPY just for a second. And let me make this a big screen, and I'm just going to clean up a few things. Okay, 1 minute chart. So here's an example right here. At the very beginning of the day, we had everything running up, but the flow algo index was showing this divergence here where it was coming down. So in this particular case, if if the kind of person that trades with RSI, first of all, I'm not going to play it up because I'm going against what the flow algo index is doing. But when it gets up here to the top, knowing that I'm looking for the opportunity to bring it back down, I'm just going to look for bearish signals on my RSI indicator to tell me that it's time to take it down. And that's where I would take that trade down. Same thing with taking your exit. You're still going to plan targets for your exit, and you're still going to stay in your trade based on your normal strategy, but you're also going to look for confirmation. If you start to see if you're starting to see things turn around on the flow algo index, you've got to go back and re-question what's going on within your chart, within your regular strategy, to see if maybe it's time to get out.
And Dario, just to caveat that, so something we didn't really even talk about, and probably should more often, is the community that we have. We're all working together because the in-state goal for all of us is to make money, right? So I don't trade SPY very often, so I don't ever look at it to see what's going on. Mike trades SPY all the time. Mike and Fred, they're like the two SPY trader guys. So when they see something setting up, I'm immediately looking at, okay, let me see what SPY's got going on, because if I want to take that trade with them, why not? So everybody is working together in order to make sure that everyone is all being, all profitable and all making money. So everyone's trying to talk through their trade and say this is what they have. Additionally, each day, there's about 8 of us that post what our daily analysis is for the specific equities that we're assigned to look at. So what we're doing is we're looking for those major areas of where we either see the support or the resistance again, and we're talking about where the target would be for it. So we're doing that analysis, and then not only are we looking at those trades, but the entire community is looking at them, and then we're coupling that with the flow index as our confirmation tool to say, yeah, this is going to go that way, because the big money is also trading it down this direction. The people who are letting this float up. So just to kind of to go on a tangent here, I read this story a long time ago of a trader. He was a floor trader who went in, and it was like his first or second day, maybe first week that he was working, and he was talking about the candle formations that occur throughout the day, and the guy who had been there, he was a seasoned floor trader, said, well, what kind of candle do you want today? And the guy was like, well, what do you mean, what kind of candle do I want today? How would I how would I be able to determine that? So what the guy was basically saying was, we control this. We can make it show whatever candle, if you're a candle trader who looks for like the bullish engulfing or tweezer tips. I don't know all the names of them, but if you're one of those guys that looks to trade those, they have the ability to create those and you still be wrong, because they are controlling it. So that's what this is doing. This is showing exactly what they're doing in their way to control and make these candles occur throughout the day. So again, that was just a little tangent there, but going back, the community is a huge part of, where am I going to take this trade? Because we're not trying to build something here that somebody's trying to take a trade from me as far as my alert. What we're trying to do is create independent traders, and we want traders who are able to assist with the rest of the community, so everybody makes money, because it's us against them really, and their account sizes are way bigger than ours, regardless of how big your account is. So that's the huge part about knowing when to get into or get out of a trade if it goes against you. Sorry, Mike, I wanted to point
Nope,
that
that's
out.
okay. Thanks, Bruce. Appreciate it. And he brings up a very good point. We do have this community. So if you're, first of all, if you came here through one of our affiliates, talk to them. They will have a link that you can go to take a trial. You can join us for a week. And because we are in, like, we have a Discord channel that we talk all day, every day, that we are in there. So if you take the free trial, sign up for it, sit with us for a week. We're not, like I said, we're not these fake gurus who are just going to tell people when to take a trade without explaining anything about it. We're in there trading live and talking about why we're trading every day, all day. So you can get in there and you can look at this stuff, learn it, start to pick it up, understand what we're doing, but also be able to ask questions live while you're doing it, where you could say, what was it that you saw here? What did you do? You said there was divergence. I didn't see the divergence. Can you explain that to me? And basically you get a crash course in how to use this stuff before you make a decision on whether it works for you or not.
Yeah. Blind trader, just to answer the question. So it is kind of like seeing the future. This is, one of the very few indicator, if you will, that isn't lagging. That it's either ahead of everything because we're seeing what they're actually doing, or it will trade with price, and you'll be able to trade it, in the same direction as them. And yes, higher lows do work, lower highs work. We use the flow index the exact same way that we're looking at price. If the flow index makes a higher high, well, then we're looking for it to the price of the equity to start moving up. Just like we see in this example that Mike has up, this made a higher high over on the day, midday around noon, right? So that's when we started seeing everything start to move back up. And then again, it made a lower low, right? So I think I didn't have a chance to look at the last few hours of the outside trading, but I think SPY moved down considerably. I know Tesla did, for without a doubt. Um, but that's exactly what it is. Yep, perfect.
Yeah, we look for that sort of thing all the time. When they're both moving up together, and you'll kind of get that little bit of a signal where uh, they're both moving up, and on one of those waves, all of a sudden the flow index doesn't make that higher high when the price does. And that's always the moment that we get a little giddy and everyone starts looking for the signs that this is going to come back down. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna fall the rest of the day when we're talking intraday stuff. But it generally means you're going to get a nice pullback, and there's money to be made in that pullback, or continuation down, as we see, like the reverse of what happened on Friday. Yeah, so for the trial, like I said, if you came here through an affiliate, they will have a link for you that you can sign up for the free trial. Or if not, you can just come to flowtrade.com right off the main page. That'll get you a link to take the free trial as well.
And again, I just want to reemphasize, we're not giving alerts. The community is the alert itself. Where it's everyone working together. The main point that we're trying to drive here is making independent traders. So I can speak for all of us when I say, when we first learned how to when we first started learning how to trade, all of us, everyone's always looking for that edge, right? And how am I going to learn how to do this? And if you go to Facebook or whatever, somebody's always promising you that they can teach you. I used to pay $500 a month for a mentor. I would ask him a question, and it would take 2 to 3 days for me to get an answer. So as somebody who's either trying to day trade or swing trade, by that time that I got an answer, it was gone. The trade was already done for. So we're trying to do this to where we're making the independent traders that don't have to ask all the questions, as far as, how do I do this? How am I, where am I looking for support? Blah, blah, blah. We want to teach you all that so you can just do it on your own and see it and then contribute to the community as well. Additionally, I just want to point this out. We've been nominated for the Benzinga FinTech Award. So if you get a chance to go to their website, to Benzinga's FinTech website, give us a vote. Hey, thanks for that, Andy. What if I'm completely new to trading? Will you guys show me how to read and use a chart? Yeah. So like Mike was talking about a minute ago, and not to steal his thunder, we have the coaching section. We do offer coaching packages to where we can take you from 0 to 10, whatever the case, however scale you want to look at it, to where you're doing it on your own. And we have several people who are in the platform as of right now that have taken advantage of that and learned the system, the proprietary FlowTrade system, to the T, and are doing really great things, especially those guys. Now, if you're a brand new trader, I would say those are the easiest people to teach. It's the ones who come in with a preconceived notion that they have been trading for, let's say a couple of years, and they have all those bad habits to break. I mean, I'm easily one of those people. I don't have any reservation about saying that I to this day have bad habits. But yeah, we absolutely take somebody from start to finish and help them get going on it. Is this information accurate for options and stocks, or was it better? No, so it doesn't matter. And I'm sorry, I thought I pointed that out. So it doesn't matter if it's a stock or an option that you're trading. What matters is what the move is going to be. So I trade options. Now, if I traded stock, it'd probably be even better for me because I don't have to deal with decay, and especially on something as crazy as Amazon goes, or Google, or hell, for that matter, Tesla at this point. Um, in fact, I used to trade a lot of Nvidia, and I stopped trading it because of the decay, the inflation of the options, and then the crazy spread. But it works for trading commons and for options, absolutely.
Yeah, I know we've got one member in particular who is just tearing it up, just playing common stocks.
Yeah.
Every day he comes in and he posts, because he's constantly looking through finding areas where we've got divergence and stuff, and he's always posting these and just making these great trades, strictly playing common shares, no options.
And that person that Mike is talking about in particular, to kind of backtrack on the question about somebody being brand new, he wasn't necessarily brand new, but when we got him, he was kind of to reference the movie Fight Club, he was made out of clay, and this guy this guy is easily carved out of wood now. I love that movie, by the way.
It doesn't show. So it doesn't look like we've got any other questions. So I will, just before we go, I will mention it once again. If you were brought here through one of our fantastic affiliates, they'll have a link for you. Hit them up to take a free trial. Or if not, you can just head over to flowtrade.com. We'll set you up. You can come in, join our Discord, talk with us, ask all the questions you want. Like I said, we're in there every day, all day, using this stuff. We live and breathe by it.
One more thing. So we do, like I said, have our own proprietary strategy that we use. Those that are joining in, you will see a lot of information about it. the indicators that we do use are not given to anybody until they become a full-fledged member, and that's to protect the IP of the stuff that we've created. So I just want to caveat that right off the bat.
Yeah, just to be clear, he doesn't mean the Flow Algo Index. He's talking
Correct.
about extra indicators for people's trading platforms like TOS or TradingView.
Correct. Okay, so again, hey, I really appreciate everybody coming. You folks on YouTube as well. I wish I could have done more with this. I just can't broadcast because I'm on the hotspot and I don't want it to drop off and lose everybody. Oh, Dario, awesome thing. Schwab, should it be better TOS? So we only write indicators for 3 different platforms, and that is TOS, TradingView, and TradeStation. I haven't even, I don't know if you have either, Mike, began to dive into Schwab at all.
Well, isn't Schwab basically becoming TOS?
Oh yeah, that's right. They are moving to become the same people. So you can download TOS for free. You get the data for free. And I'm biased to TradeStation, but TOS is a great platform. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Andy. Schwab won't allow the ability. Oh, okay. See, so there, Fred just said that Schwab doesn't allow the ability to create indicators. So
Yeah, I mean, if you've got a comfortable strategy that you're using right now that you use indicators on Schwab, then will that pair with what we're doing with the flow index and the site? Absolutely. But if you wanted to get, some of the custom indicators that we also do, you would need another platform like TOS.
Yep. Great. So I appreciate everyone showing up for this Labor Day weekend. I didn't even think about it being a Labor Day weekend and everyone being out of town. I'm active duty military and I'm on a 55-mile restriction, so I'm going to be home regardless. And then again, the hurricane put a big hindrance on my life. But we really appreciate you taking the time. We try to keep this to about an hour, so. Hey, we've got a Navy guy. Okay, all right. Cool. I'm sure you and I will be able to have a chance to talk later. I worked with a lot of Navy. But again, I do appreciate everyone taking the time to spend this hour with us. And if you do join, I look forward to seeing you in the chat, as well as the other guys look forward to it as well. Don't be afraid to reach out to us. The contact information for Twitter is Real FlowTrade. You can find us on Facebook at FlowTrade. Instagram is official FlowTrade, and then any questions that you want is info@flowtrade.com. So have a good weekend, everybody. Get out there and enjoy some decent weather.